So first up, here we are, we've got a project. I've just called it my app, it's just on my desktop, and there's nothing in it. It's basically a project which has just been created with the Maven Quick Start archetype. So there's a pom.xml file, which is the basic bare bones pom.xml generated from the archetype. And then in here we've got a source, main, and a Java folder. And we've got a package, so we're ready to begin. So first up, let's create a class. We'll just call it app. And app is just going to have a main method. So when we run app, it's going to be a Spring application. Let's just double check that we've got everything set up okay. We'll just say hello, and we'll just right click on app and do run. We're just doing this just to make sure that the project compiles and that it can run and everything's okay. And here we can see we've got hello, which is the output from the program, which goes to the IDEA console. So okay, that's fine, that's all good. Nothing to do with Spring yet though. So let's bring Spring into the equation. So what we're going to do for this demo is we just want to do the smallest possible thing which gives us a Spring application. And that's basically to create an application context, which is Spring's container which we'll use, which allows us to do dependency injection and all that kind of stuff which you've probably heard about. We just need to be able to create an application context from the Spring framework in this main method, and then effectively we've got the beginnings of a Spring application. So to do this, let's go into Chrome and we'll go to search.maven.org. And from here, this is where you can search the Maven central repository for any dependency, not just Spring, any dependency you want to look for or you want to have access to. The preferred method these days is to go to search.maven.org. So what we need to do is we search for org.springframework, which is the group ID of the Spring framework. And then if we put a colon, you'll see we have a set of individual modules from the Spring framework itself, which we can pull in. There's about 20 modules in Spring itself, and this is a listing of them basically. So the one we want to have is called Spring-Context. So Spring Context basically pulls in a few other dependencies, as we'll see, but it enables us to create the Spring container, this so-called application context. We do that by instantiating the application context, creating an instance out of it effectively, and it lets us do the dependency injection stuff as well, which is one of the main selling points of Spring. And we'll come to why that's important later on in the course and why that's very, very useful and why it's made Spring the #1 framework in the Java community. But for now, let's just pull the module in. So you can see here, this page will always give you the latest release. So you can see the latest release here is 5.2.7 release, which is the one we're going to use for this. And that's the very latest and greatest version of the Spring framework we're going to use. So if we go down and search for context, you can see here it is. And if we click on the version itself, then we'll be taken directly to a page which enables us to copy and paste a dependency. So like I said before, we're using Maven, so we're going to use this dependency here, you can see. If you're using Gradle, you can use the one underneath. So I'm just going to basically copy this dependency, Command C. You can also click this icon here, and it'll copy it to the clipboard. Go back into IDEA, go across to the pom.xml file, and you'll see we've already got a dependencies section here. So there's only one dependency out of the box which is provided for us, which is JUnit 4, which is provided by the Quick Start archetype, which generated this project. We're just going to put a dependency above that, and that's basically the dependency for Spring context. So Command V to copy and paste that. Now I've got to go down here to enable auto import. And what this will do is make sure that the class paths between Maven's model of the project and IntelliJ IDEA's model of the project, those class paths are the same. So if I now jump up into external libraries and open that up, we can see here that we've got some extra dependencies which have been pulled in from this Spring context. So Spring context is the top level dependency you want to bring in to get started with Spring, but Spring context itself will pull in other dependencies, and it does so transitively. So in common with all Maven projects, not only are you as a Maven project a dependency which other people can include, or other projects can include rather, similarly you also depend on other projects to be able to get your work done. So you have other dependencies. So in this case, Spring Context has dependencies on AOP, which is used to support aspect-oriented programming, Beans, which provides support for Beans, Context, which is basically the application context framework that we'll see, Core, which is the foundation of everything, Expression, which is to do with Spring expression language support, and finally Spring JCL, which is an inbuilt logger. So that's great. We've imported this Spring context now. You can see here 5.2.7 Spring context, which means that if we go into the app itself, we should be able to delete this line and we should have access to the application context interface. And you can see here it's coming up as a suggestion from org.springframework.context. So that's great. All the dependencies are set up correctly now, and now we can start to use Spring.